Okay, good evening, everyone. So in the last class, we started discussing about the Elastic Block Store, which is a block-based service, and the storage can be used for EC2 instances. Whenever we are creating an EC2 instance, as it requires a storage, we have to use Elastic Block Store. In that Elastic Block Store, we have a different types of volumes available. We have covered the first two categories. One is a general purpose SSD, in which we have a two types, GP2 and GP3. And then we covered the provisioned IOPS also, which is IO1 and IO2. And these four are the solid state drives. If you create any of those four type of EBS volumes, the hard disk will be supported by the SSD, solid state drives. And then the next type of the volume is throughput optimized HDD. So these are supported by the magnetic hard drives, like a normal hard drives, in which the dominant performance will be in terms of MB per seconds, like the throughput. We call it as a throughput. So what is the use case of this particular throughput optimized HDD? In what kind of scenario we have to use this throughput optimized HDD? And it will be denoted as ST1. What is the use case of this ST1 type of EBS volumes? When to use these kind of storage volumes? The main use case of this is for data warehousing, like where they will store a huge data, right? And they will read the data and they will process the data. In such kind of situations, this ST1 type of hard disk can be used to store that particular kind of a data. Data warehousing, like we call it as a big data, right? And also if you would like to process some kind of a logs, whenever you would like to manage or process huge data set, like huge amount of data, in that case, we have to use this throughput optimized HDD. Data warehousing is one use case, and the second one is a log processing. What is the log processing is, they will collect the log files from n number of servers and they will place all the log files in a single server. There they can process the logs, like they can monitor the log files. That is called as a log processing. In these use cases, we have to use throughput optimized HDD. And in this case, the dominant performance feature will be throughput, not the IOPS. The main performance will be in terms of throughput, not in IOPS. Now, what we do is, let us create one EBS volume with ST1 type of volume type. And while creating, we will note down the features and the characteristics. Let us create a volume with 125 GB. So based on this, we can say that might be minimum size should be 125. With ST1 type name tag, I will use it as the 125 GB dash 1B, and here I will use ST1. So as of now, while we are noting down the features, we have used IOPS, maximum IOPS, right? And IOPS ratio and all the things. And as these don't have the IOPS, we have to replace that IOPS term with the throughput. What is the maximum throughput you can get? And what is the throughput ratio? All these things we have to note down. Those things we will modify at the time of noting down all the values. Definitely these IOPS part will be replaced with throughput. Okay. At the time of noting down the values, I will replace with this throughput. So now let us go ahead with creation of ST1 type of EBS volume. So where we can create the EBS volumes, to which service we have to go? EC2 service, because the EBS is a feature of EC2 service. Navigate to EC2 service first. And then on the left side, click on volumes under Elastic Block Store. Click on volumes under Elastic Block Store. These are the 4 volumes which we created in the last session. Click on the create volume. Okay, before that, what is the durability? Durability will be 99.8 to 99.9%. Durability is 99.8 to 99.9%, same as GP2 and GP3. Okay, now these minimum size, maximum size, these things we will see at the time of creating the database. Okay, so here in the volume type, let me select the ST1. And what is the minimum size here? Minimum is a 125 GB. Maximum is 16 terabytes. And here also you cannot use dots like 100.5, 120.5. You cannot use those decimal numbers. You have to use the integer values. And our goal is to use 125. Okay, so here minimum size is 125 GB and maximum size will be 16 terabytes. Coming to the IOPS, which is not applicable. Not applicable means you cannot select, or there is no guaranteed IOPS based on the size of the hard disk. In the backend, Amazon will provide the minimum IOPS which is required to manage that kind of a storage. So here there will be no IOPS ratio. So now we have to note down about the throughput. We have to note down the throughput and throughput ratio. Maximum throughput. Okay, so now coming to the throughput. Is it a fixed throughput, or are we going to manage, or are we going to set the throughput as per the requirement? To check that, so here, if you see the throughput, is there any option that I can enter the manual throughput here? No, that is a fixed value, or we can say the throughput will be assigned automatically based on the size of the hard disk. Throughput will be assigned based on the size of the volume. So there is no option that you can customize, or we can say not customizable. You cannot customize it. Now, on what basis, on what ratio you will get that throughput? For every 1 GB of storage, how many MB per second of throughput we will get? So here you can see the baseline is 40 MB per terabyte of storage. For every 1 terabyte of storage you select, you will be getting 40 MB per second. So for 125 GB, how much we should get? Let us say for every 1 terabyte, you will get 40 MB, right? So what is the value for every 1 GB? For every 1 GB, how much we will get? So 40 Mbps terabyte, right? And if I divide it with 1024, this is the value we will get for every GB. If I do with 125, how much I am getting? 4.88. But it will be rounded to the closest integer value. What is the nearest integer value? 5. That's why for 125 GB, you are getting 5 MB per second. Okay. So coming to the ratio, it should be like 1:40. It's 1:40. It's based on terabyte for every MB per second, with minimum 5 MB per second. For every 1 terabyte of storage, we will get 40 MB per second. Now, what is the maximum throughput we can get? What is the maximum throughput we can get? If I try to use like all the 16 terabytes, whatever the value we can get, that will be the maximum, right? Okay. But here you can see like 5 by 31. What is this by 31? For 125 GB, we will get 5 MB per second. Then what is this 31? 5 is the fixed value. You will get minimum 5 MB per second throughput. But depending on the availability, if like nobody using the throughput, like you are going to share the hard disk with multiple people, right? The physical hard disk. According to the availability, the speed might be increased up to 31 MB per second. But this 31 is not guaranteed. The guaranteed value is the 5 MB per second. The guaranteed value is the 5. And this is called as burstable up to 31. It can be increased up to 31 based on the availability of the throughput. But the 5 is a guaranteed value. Okay, to get the maximum throughput, if I type 16,384, this will be the maximum. What is the maximum throughput we can get in the ST1 type of EBS volume? 500 MB per second. And in which availability zone we are planning? In 1B. Okay. So let me select in 1B. And scroll down. And is there any option we left? No. Right? Okay. So now let me scroll down and let me add a tag 125 GB dash 1B dash ST1. And let me click on create volume. So here we created another EBS volume with 125 GB. We created another EBS volume of 125 GB in 1B availability zone. And here we have to note down few other values like, can we use this ST1 as a root volume or a boot volume? No. It will not support as a root volume for your EC2 instances. That means you cannot use the ST1 type of the EBS volume to install the operating system. You can use that as an additional volume like D drive, E drive, where you can install your applications, where you can store your data. And coming to the multi-attach, also not supported. Is it a free tier eligible? It is not free tier eligible. The free tier eligible volumes are general purpose SSD and the last one, which we are going to discuss later. Okay, now we have to discuss about the cold HDD, which is called as SC1. Give me a second. Let me copy paste the things. Okay. So now we are going to create something like 150 GB in US East 1E availability zone with SC1 type. And the name tag will be 150 GB. And here I will use 1E. Okay, first thing, do I need to use the name tag like this only? You can use anything, but the tags are for identification purpose. So to identify the volumes quickly, just I'm using this format. Even you can use something like ABC, XYZ. Even you can use that also, but there is no use of those tags for identification purpose. Okay. So here, if you see the SC1 And what is the durability here? Durability is the same 99.8 to 99.9% only. There is no change in the durability for all the volumes. The durability is the same except IO2, right? Except IO2. What is the durability of the IO2? 99.999%. Okay. So what is the use case of this cold HDD is whatever the data you use infrequently, like just you would like to store the data and the data cannot be used regularly, like occasionally, like weekly once or daily once. If you would like to use the data for such kind of storage, we have to use this SC1, because this SC1 is the lowest cost storage available under Elastic Block Store. In the Elastic Block Store, this SC1 category will cost you very less amount. And this is not recommended for the data which is frequently used. Let us say if we are using this for database. Database means the data will be read and written every day, like every minute, right? For such kind of scenarios, the SC1 is not recommended. This is only recommended to store the infrequently accessed data. So this use case is to store the infrequently accessed data. So durability is the same 99.8% to 99.9%. Now the minimum size, maximum size, all these things we will note down at the time of creating the EC2 instance. And we are creating this in the availability zone 1E. Okay, go to your Amazon account, navigate to EC2 service and click on volumes under Elastic Block Store. And then click on create volume. So under the volume type, we have to select the cold HDD, which is SC1. So what is the minimum size? 125 GB, maximum is 16 terabytes. As of now, for every volume, whatever we have covered, for every volume, the maximum size is 16 terabytes, except the IO2 that supports 64 terabytes. Okay. So our goal is 150. So minimum size is 125 GB and the maximum size is 16 terabytes. And what about the IOPS here? IOPS is not applicable. What about the throughput? Assign based on the size of the volume. That means you cannot manually select the throughput. In both the cases, you cannot select the throughput manually. On what ratio the throughput will be assigned? Okay. If you see here, you can see the baseline is 12 MB per terabyte, 12 MB per second for every terabyte. What about the previous one? What about the previous one, ST1? For 125 GB, we got like almost like a 5 MB per second, right? For 125 GB, we got 5 MB. So what is the ratio in the ST1? 40 MB per second for every terabyte. But here you are getting very less. That means very less read and write operations like data transfer speed. That's why it is recommended for infrequently accessed data. Infrequently means the data which cannot be used regularly. Occasionally used data, we can use this one. Okay, the ratio is 12 MB per terabyte. For every terabyte of hard disk, we will get 12 MB per second throughput. The ratio will be 1:12, which is like TB, terabytes for MB per second. What is the minimum size we can get? What is the minimum size, minimum throughput we can get? If I go with 125 GB size, whatever the throughput we will get, that will be the minimum throughput we will get, right? What is the minimum? 2 MB per second. So minimum throughput you will get is 2 MB per second. But for 150 also you are getting 2. So when it will be changed? For 200 you are getting increased by 1. That depends on the ratio 12:1. For every 1 terabyte of hard disk, you will get 12 MB per second. Okay, so here the maximum is, then what is the maximum? What is the maximum throughput we can get? If I replace this with the maximum value, then you will get the maximum throughput. Maximum throughput will be the 250. So guaranteed allocation will be 192, but depending on the availability, you get up to 250 MB per second. So that is the maximum value. You can get maximum 250 MB per second. So for 150 GB, you will get only 2 MB per second. And the availability zone, we decided to create in 1E. And then let us use the name tag here. And click on create volume. So the volume got created. So now, can I use this as a root volume? Can I use this as a root volume? No, you cannot use this as a root volume. So this volume is to store the very infrequently accessed data, right? If it is a root volume means we have to install the operating system. Whenever your server is running, the operating system will utilize your hard disk, right? That means that is not the infrequently accessed. So based on that example, you can automatically remember that this volume cannot be used as a root volume. And also it is not supported with multi-attach feature. Is it a free tier eligible? No, it is not eligible for free tier. And finally, we have one thing called magnetic, which is also called as a standard. The last type of hard disk is a magnetic, which is also called as a standard, which is not recommended to use for any of your EC2 instances. This magnetic is the previous generation type of storage in which you don't get any guaranteed IOPS or any guaranteed throughput. There will be no guaranteed throughput or IOPS. And the use case will be to store infrequently accessed data. Magnetic is recommended. But even the SC1 also the same thing, right? But this magnetic is built on very old version of the storage concept. Let us say if you see the laptops, we have i7, i5, i3. But if you go back, we have a Core 2 Duo, dual core and all these things, right? Nowadays, no one is using that old kind of Core 2 Duo and dual core. Why? They are not giving you that much performance when comparatively with the latest ones. In the same way, this magnetic type of a storage will not give you the better performance. At least they will not give you the average performance also when comparatively with the other volume types. In the near future, Amazon might remove the magnetic storage from the AWS services. This is a previous generation type of the storage in which you don't get any guaranteed throughput or guaranteed IOPS. And this is only recommended to use infrequently accessed data. It is only used to store infrequently accessed data. So let me show you one more thing here. Just I will show you in the, this is the one, previous generation, right? You can see previous generation volume types. You can see the standard. Volume type is the standard, which is the previous generation type. which is not recommended to use by Amazon itself. And there is no durability, not much durability. You will get very less. And you can see maximum IOPS, you can get 200. That is not a guaranteed. You can get between 40 to 200, and maximum throughput will be 40 to 90 only. There is no option to increase that, or there is no option to select your required volume. And the one more is you cannot create more than 1 terabytes. You cannot create more than 1 terabyte of storage. Okay, anyways, let us create one magnetic standard type of a volume also. Create, let us say 7 GB of magnetic volume in US East 1A, US East 1A, and the name tag, let us say 7 GB dash, I will use STD, standard. Instead of writing the standard, I will use just STD. Okay, no, I don't want to confuse. Let me use the full name, standard 1A. Seven GB dash 1A dash standard. This is how we are using, right? Storage size, availability zone, and the volume type. Let us use the same notation so that easy to understand. So while creating, just we can see what all the options we can select or we can get and all the things. And what we have done, we created one which is in 1E, right? We created the, what we call that, 150 GB in 1E. And now we are creating the other one in 1A itself. So here I can create 7 GB we are about to create in 1A. Okay, so now let us create that. To create the volume, you have to go to the same place in the EC2 service, click on volumes under Elastic Block Store. Click on create volume, and the volume type should be magnetic or standard. What is the minimum size and maximum size? Minimum is 1 GB and maximum is 1 terabyte. You cannot create more than 1 terabyte in size. So here, minimum size is 1 GB and maximum size is 1 terabyte. What about the IOPS? And what about the throughput? So that we can see at the time of creation. So here you can see IOPS is not applicable. Throughput is not applicable. So you don't get any guaranteed allocation of IOPS and throughput. And just select the 1A availability zone. And then let me add a tag. And 7 GB dash 1A dash standard. So IOPS is not applicable. Throughput is also not applicable. Then can I use this as a root volume? Can I use this as a root volume? Yes, you can use that as a root volume. Does it support as a multi-attach feature? No, it will not support the multi-attach feature. Is it a free tier eligible? Yes, it is a free tier eligible. Yes, it is a free tier eligible. So now out of all these volumes, Out of all these volumes, what are the free tier eligible volumes? General purpose SSD, GP2 and GP3, and the magnetic. All together, per month, you can use up to 30 GB. If you use more than 30 GB, then whatever the size you have utilized more than the 30 GB, that is eligible for the charges. Let us say if you create one 30 GB volume and you have used it for 24 hours, and after 24 hours, you have deleted. That means you have used it for one day. Then how much Amazon will calculate that usage? They will calculate on pro rata basis, like 30 GB for one day, right? So totally the 30 GB is free tier eligible for all the 30 days. So they will consider that you have used only 1 GB. Okay. If you create 30 GB volumes, like 30 number volumes you created with 30 GB each. If you use one day, altogether you are done with the 30 GB free tier. If you keep that 30 GB into 900 GB for all the 30 days, then you will be charged for the additional 870 GB. Per month, they will calculate that have you used the 30 GB or not. Every hour they will calculate. Do you have the 30 GB in your account or not? If yes, they will they will calculate like the 30 GB is utilized for 1 hour. If you have used 24 hours, they will calculate that 1 day is completed. Because they will give you the 30 GB for 30 days. That is like about like 720 hours. In a given month, you can use the 30 GB volume for 720 hours. That is a backend calculation, how they will calculate whether you have utilized all the free tier or not. So we have created the 7 different volumes, right? And how to use that? Like these are a kind of, you purchase some hard disk from the market. So how can we utilize that? By connecting the hard disk to our laptops or desktops. Now what I do is, I will create a 2 EC2 instances or 3 EC2 instances, and I will name them as a server 1, server 2, and server 3. I will name them as server 1, server 2, and server 3. And while creating also, I will create all these servers in different availability zones. This I will create in the 1A availability zone. This also I will create in 1A, and this I will create in the 1B availability zone. As per the theory, let us say for the server 1, let us say the server 1, what all EBS volumes I can connect with server 1. Okay, so here let me number the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Total 7 volumes we have, right? 1 second, guys. Okay. New batch, fresh batch. Okay, 730. Okay. Telegram. Okay, sorry guys. What are we discussing? Okay, so we have 3 EC2 instances, right? So we have the server 1, which is in the 1A availability zone. Out of all these 7 volumes, what all volumes I can connect with the server 1? Only we can connect 1, 3, and 7. Why? Because already I mentioned that the EBS volumes can be attached with the EC2 instances which are in the same availability zone. So just to differentiate that, I have used different colors at the time of creation. So this you can connect, this also you can connect, and even the 7th also you can connect. And coming to the 4th volume, to which EC2 instance I can connect the 4th volume? the fourth volume to which EC2 instance I can connect. Which one? 1, 2, 3. Server 1, server 2, and server 3. No, because the fourth EBS volume, this is the one. The fourth EBS volume is in the 1C availability zone, and we don't have any EC2 instances running in 1C availability zone. So you cannot use the 6 GB volume which is in 1C. So now what I do is I will create all the 3 EC2 instances in 3 different availability zones. And then first we will attach the first volume with the server 1. Then we will try the same EBS volume to be attached with the other EC2 instance also. Can I do like this at a time? No, you cannot. Let us say if you have one pen drive, can you connect the pen drive to multiple computers at a time? No, but one after one you can, right? At a time, you cannot connect the single volume to multiple EC2 instances, but you can connect one after another. Like first you can connect to the server 1, and then you can remove it and you can connect to the server 2. If I do in that way, what will happen to the data? If there is some data created in the volume by connecting to server 1, if I disconnect and if I reconnect to the another server called server 2, what will happen to the data? The data will exist or the data will be deleted automatically. Just compare with your pen drive. Let us say you gave me one pen drive and I connected to my laptop. I copied some data. And if I remove the pen drive and if you connect that pen drive to your laptop, what will happen to the data? Data will exist, right? The same way it will work. Unless you delete the data will be existing on the EBS volumes. Okay, anyways, first let us create all these 3 EC2 instances in 2 different availability zones. So now here, create 3 EC2 instances as mentioned below. Wait a second. 3 EC2 instances with Windows operating system. Why Windows is? That is the graphical user interface and it will be easy to understand the concepts. You can go with Windows Server 2016, 2019. That doesn't matter. Whatever the Windows operating system, it will work in the same way. So first server will be server 1 to be created in US East 1A. And then we will create server 2. And this also to be in US East 1A. And then we will create server 3, which will be in a different availability zone, 1B. So I think you guys know like how to create the EC2 instances and how to select the availability zones, right? Okay. So what I do is I will show you the steps like how to create the EC2 instance, so that will be a kind of a revision for you, like how to create the EC2 instance. Then server 2 and 3 just I will create quickly. For one instance, I will show you step by step. And then the remaining 2 I will create with quick. Okay, so first let me create the server 1. Okay, so how to create the, okay, before that, how many volumes we have here? 7 EBS volumes. And all these EBS volumes we created manually, right? These are called as EBS volumes. Okay, so now let me go back to the Amazon account. And to create the EC2 instance, we have to navigate to EC2 service, right? Open the EC2 service. Open the EC2 service. And then just on the left side, click on instances under the instances module. And how many instances we have here? No, actually these were terminated. They will be removed after like up to 30 minutes. Within 30 minutes, these instances will be removed from the UI. But in the backend, there is no servers running. Okay. So to create the EC2 instance, we have to click on launch instances. So first here, we have to give a name for your EC2 instance. I will give the name as server 1. I will give a name server 1. And then we have to select the Amazon machine image. So this is the one which we are looking for, Windows operating system. Just click on confirm if it asks you for the confirmation. Okay, so here you can select what AMI you are looking for. Just select 2019 base, in which you don't get any additional softwares, just operating system will be installed. Then you have to select the instance type. Which instance type is a free tier eligible? T2.micro. So you can select the T2.micro from the drop down. And key pair. What is the key pair? Or what is the use of a key pair? Or what this key pair will do with your Windows EC2 instance? What it will do? So every server will have some password, right? Whenever we are creating the EC2 instance, Amazon will generate a random password. And that random password will be encrypted and stored. How that password will be encrypted is using this key pair. And to see the password, we have to decrypt the password. To decrypt the password, we have to use this key pair. If you don't have access to the key pair, you cannot decrypt the password. That means you cannot view the password. Okay, then here, click on edit because we need to select the availability zone manually. Server 1 to be in which availability zone? US East 1A. And in which region I am creating? This EC2 instance, I am creating in which region? How can we identify that? So on the top right side, you can see the region name. Why I am creating in Northern Virginia? Why I am creating? Because of this, I am creating in Northern Virginia. So by seeing this selected availability zone name, how can we identify that we have to create in Northern Virginia? Out of the, not US, in the US we have 3 regions. US East 1, East 2, West 1, West 2. So US East 1 is Northern Virginia. The selected one indicates the region name and the A indicates the availability zone. Because it is US East 1, that's why I'm creating in Northern Virginia. Okay, so subnet, I have to select 1A. I selected 1A availability zone. Then instead of creating a new security group, I will select an existing security group, or we can create a new security group also. Now the question is, what rules we have to create in that security group? So security group will contain some rules. Based on the rules, it will allow the incoming traffic, right? Incoming request. So which traffic we have to allow? Which traffic we have to allow? How to identify what traffic to be allowed? To identify what traffic to be allowed, what kind of actions you would like to perform on that EC2 instance? As of now, why HTTP? Someone said HTTP. Why? I am not running any website there, right? So no use. So as of now, my goal is after creating the EC2 instance, I would like to log into the Windows EC2 instance. As of now, that is my requirement. So how can we log in? By using RDP, right? Remote desktop connection. And that remote desktop connection will use RDP protocol, remote desktop protocol. So that traffic, remote desktop protocol traffic to be allowed. Why we are using RDP is because it is a Windows. If it is a Linux, we have to use SSH. Okay, anyways, this is a Windows. So we have to allow RDP protocol. So that RDP port to be allowed in that particular security group. That is a mandatory. RDP is mandatory. So you can see if you select the create security group, by default, it will identify the RDP traffic to be allowed from anywhere. That is a default rule will be created at the time of creating a new security group for your Windows EC2 instance. If you are trying to create a Linux instance based on the image, Amazon machine image, Amazon will identify that you are creating Linux machine and this will become SSH. But already we created some security groups in the EC2 class, right? That's why I will use the existing security groups. Out of this is the security group Windows RDP, which will allow RDP protocol from anywhere across the globe. For that reason, we are using some meaningful names at the time of creating the security groups. Select Windows RDP. And here already there is one storage is getting created. Can I create the EC2 instance without this 30 GB storage? Okay, if yes, where the operating system will be installed? If without selecting this 30 GB, if we are able to create the EC2 instance, then where operating system will be installed? So the root volume is mandatory. That is called as root volume. Now, here you can see one option called advanced, right? Let me click on the advanced. This is the one which we are creating, right? 30 GB, this is a default volume, which is called as a root volume. And if you see the options, what is the default option? What is the meaning of this? Delete on termination. What is a delete on termination means? If you delete, the meaning of this is, if it is yes, if you delete your EC2 instance, this volume will be deleted automatically. That's why whenever you delete your EC2 instance, the root volume got deleted. The default behavior of the root volumes is, if you delete the EC2 instance, automatically the root volume will be deleted by default, unless you change this option. Okay, all right. So now let me go back. So this is the root volume, right? What are the root volume supported EBS types? We have total 7 different types, right? Out of those, what are the volumes supported as root volumes? General purpose SSD, GP2, GP3, IO1, IO2, IO1 and IO2, and magnetic. Total 5, right? If you click here, you can see general purpose, GP3, GP2, IO1, IO2, and SC1, ST1 also. But I said that these two are not eligible as a root volume, right? But why it is displaying here? Let me select this one. What happened? Okay, first one is smallest size should be 125 GB. So let me change that to the minimum size. But now what is the message here? The volume type is not compatible with root volumes. You cannot select the SC1 or ST1, both. But magnetic, yes, it supports. Magnetic is supported. Okay, let me go with GP2 and let me go with minimum size 30 GB. 30 GB is required for Windows. Okay, and you can see free tier eligible customers can get up to 30 GB of EBS, general purpose or magnetic storage. You cannot get provisioned IOPS, cold HDD or throughput optimized under free tier eligible. What if I need an additional volume for that EC2 instance? I would like to have C drive of 30 GB and I would like to have D drive of 10 GB. And that I would like to create at the time of EC2 instance creation. So here you have to click on add new volume. Add new volume. And here the size you can select as a 10 GB. Volume type, you can select any volume type because this will be the, what we call the EBS volume or additional volume. Okay, so let me select the GP2 itself. Delete on termination. By default, I don't select any option. I will leave it as is. I will leave it as is. I don't want to select any option here, so that we can check what is the default behavior of the additional EBS volumes. If I delete the EC2 instance, what will happen to this 10 GB volume? That we can observe. Just scroll down. How many instances you need? I need just only one. Scroll down and click on launch instance. So now what is happening with the server 1? How the server 1 is getting created? The server 1 is getting created with 2 volumes, right? Already 2 volumes. One is, okay, this is in 1A. So one is 30 GB and the second one is 10 GB. And this is the root volume and the 10 GB is the additional volume. And then what we do, we will connect the 1 GB volume to the same server 1. So how many volumes will be there? Like how many drives will be there? C drive, D drive, and E drive. C drive will be 30 GB, D drive will be 10 GB, E drive will be 1 GB. Okay. 1 GB? What do you mean by what do you mean by why? You mean like why or how? Why? Okay, because later I will associate this 1 GB with the server 1. That's why you will get that as a E drive. If you don't connect, you will not get that 1 GB. You can see once we attach it. Okay. So now what I do is I will create the server 2 and server 3 also. But here I don't add any additional volumes. Just I will create with the root volumes of 30 GB. Okay. But the server 2 will be in 1A and server 3 will be in 1B availability zones. The same process I will follow, but quickly I will create those 2 servers. So you can see the server 1 got created. And let me launch instances. So here I will use the name server 2. Windows T2.micro key pair. I will select this one. And server 2 also in 1A availability zone, right? Edit. Subnet should be in the 1A. And let me select an existing security group. Okay, then I will create one more server, one more EC2 instance, server 3. And this time I will create that in 1B availability zone. Launch instance. Let me use the name as server 3. Windows, confirm changes. T2.micro, Northern Virginia. Let me click on edit and let me change the subnet to 1B. And I will select the existing security group instead of creating a new security group. And yes. So all the 3 servers got created. So now what we do is let us log into the server 1. Let us log into the server 1 and let us see, are we able to see the 30 GB C drive and the 10 GB D drive? Okay, without logging in, how can we know that the server 1 is created or attached with how many volumes? So this is the server 1. And we remember that while creating the server 1, we attached 30 GB root volume and the 10 GB EBS volume. So to identify that without logging in, select the server 1. And here you can see there is one tab called storage. Click on the storage. And here you can see the details of all the EBS volumes got attached. Out of these 2, how to identify which one is the root volume and which one is the additional volume? How to identify? But here these 2 are 2 different volumes and we can easily identify this will be the root volume. But technically, how can we identify? And if I scroll down also, there is no option that what we call that, which is the root volume or which is the EBS volume. How to identify? Whenever you can see the device name as /dev/something, then that will be the root volume. If you see like this, XVDB, that is the kind of additional EBS volume. All the root volumes will have the device name like this, /dev/something. And the additional volumes will have this one, XVDB, DC, DD, DE, and so on. Okay, right. So now what I do is, let me refresh. Okay, the server 1 is ready, right? So let us log into the server 1 and observe that the 30 GB and 10 GB volumes are available in that EC2 instance or not. Log into server 1 and observe the attached two EBS volumes. One is a 30 GB and the second one is a 10 GB. So how to log in? And this is a Windows, right? Server 1 is a Windows machine. So which tool we have to use to log in? Tool must be a remote desktop connection. And what are the details we need to log in? What are the details we need to log in? Okay, let us say here I open a remote desktop connection. Now how to log in? Public IP, then public IP, then key pair. Okay, then okay, let us say public IP and key pair. How can I log in with public IP and key pair? Actually, to log into the Windows machine, we need the IP address. And as we are logging in from a remote location, we need to use a public IP. And then we need to have a username and we need to have the password. These are the three details we need to have. And what is the public IP address of that server 1? From where we can get the public IP of that server 1? Just go to your EC2 console and select server 1. And this is the public IP. Here is the one. You can see the name as public IP version 4 address. And what is the username? All Windows servers will get the username as administrator. And password? How to get a password? Select the server 1, click on connect, then select the RDP client tab, the second one, middle tab, RDP client. Why I have to select the RDP client? Because I am logging into the Windows instance using the RDP client. The remote desktop connection is the RDP client. Then just scroll down and click on get password. To get the password, it will ask you to upload the key pair. By using the key pair, the password will be decrypted. Click on browse, select the key pair, and click on decrypt password. So here is the password. Let me copy, paste it. Now we need to log in. So what is the IP address? 35.173.248.59. Enter the IP address here in the remote desktop connection, public IP. If you enter the private IP, you will not be able to communicate with the server. Click on connect. Then it will ask you to enter the username and password. Okay, let us say you are not getting this window. What might be the reason? After entering the public IP, you are not getting this window to enter the username and password. What might be the reason? What might be the reason? Any guess? Public IP? Public IP is wrong. Okay, let us say you are using the correct public IP address only. Then you are using you enter the correct public IP, but still you are not getting this window. What might be the reason? Okay, so whenever I enter the public IP and click on connect, what will happen in the backend? From my laptop, the request will be sent to the EC2 instance, right? What is the device or what is the service available in between your laptop and the EC2 instance? Security group. So there might be something wrong with the security group. Whatever the inbound rules you have created, that inbound rule is not allowing your request. So you have to check that the 3389 port is allowed or not. So by any chance, if you use my IP address, generally for the house broadband connection, your home IP address will be changed every day. You will not get a fixed IP. You can check like alternate days, you will get a new IP. So you have to make sure that the security group is allowing the traffic from your home or not, at least from your home. So change that to anywhere. Definitely you can log in. Still, if you are not able to log in, then generally it will not happen. As of now, whatever we have discussed, as per that, the only problem will be with the security group. Okay, so I logged in, right? This is our Windows EC2 instance, which is server 1. It will take some time to load completely. You can see it is not responding. Yeah. Okay, so here you can see details about the EC2 instance also, like in which availability zone it is, what is the instance size, what is the public IP, what is the private IP, every information you can see. Okay, so now if I go to my computer, like if I open the file explorer and if I click on this PC, what you guys will expect? Are we able to see the C drive and D drive? C drive with 30 GB and D drive with 10 GB. But what happened here? What happened here? Only you can see the 30 GB drive, which is the root volume. But where is that new 10 GB drive? By default, if you connect any new hard disk, new volume to the Windows server, because of some security policies, that drive will be available as an offline. So we have to make that drive as an online. So until you make that 10 GB drive as online in the EC2 instance, it is not visible here. Okay, so now let us say one example. Let us say you purchase one new hard disk from the market. Can you use it directly, or do you need to do anything on that hard disk? You purchase one hard disk, like 1 terabyte hard disk. Can I use that directly? Like by connecting to your laptop, can you use that to store your objects or something? Okay, so have you ever heard about a term called format? What is format? What is formatting? Formatting a pen drive or formatting a hard disk? Formatting is not deleting all the data, but we use that format term for deleting the data. Generally, every hard disk will have a file system. Whenever I store some data, right? How the data will be stored into the hard disk? With the help of a file system. There are different file systems available. For Windows, we have NTFS file system. For Linux, we have latest one is the ext4. Before that, ext3, ext2 are there. In Windows also, before NTFS, we have a FAT file system, like FAT32 and FAT16, right? Without having a file system, you cannot use your hard disk. It can be a pen drive or it can be a memory card or whatever it is. So whenever you purchase a new hard disk, that is called as a raw storage space, which you cannot use. So what you have to do is you have to create a partition. By creating a file system, you can create a partition. But here, while installing the operating system, Amazon will create a file system with all the space on the hard disk, which is 30 GB. So we have an additional 10 GB storage available, which is not yet enabled online and which is not yet having a file system. So while creating the file system, you can divide that entire 10 GB into two different partitions, like D drive with 5 GB, E drive with 5 GB, or you can create 1 GB partitions 10, or you can create entire 10 GB as a single partition also. Haven't you seen your computer with multiple partitions like C drive, D drive? That doesn't mean that you have two hard disks in your computer. You have a single hard disk with 1 terabyte, but while you are installing the operating system, you might have created C drive with 500 GB and D drive with 500 GB. Okay, but anyways, the additional 10 GB volume, whatever you have attached to your EC2 instance at the time of creation, that will not become online for the first time. For the first time, that hard disk is the new hard disk to your EC2 instance, right? Due to security reasons, Amazon EC2 instance will make any new hard drive as offline. So we have to convert that hard drive to be online, and then we need to create the file system. So here you can write down like, by default, all new hard disks, by default, all new hard disks will be connected as offline drives. Offline drives, that means they are offline. And all and newly created EBS volume doesn't contain any file system which will not support storing the data. So what are the two steps we have? What are the two steps we have? First one is make the EBS volume online. And the second one is create a file system on the 10 GB volume. I'm talking about the server one. We have to create a file system on 10 GB volume, and that file system with entire 10 GB as a D drive, or the 10 GB you can divide into two partitions, like 5 GB as D drive and 5 GB as a E drive. That depends on your requirement. But nowadays, nobody is dividing the single hard disk into multiple drives. If they need multiple drives, they are creating different EBS volumes. So first thing, how can we manage that hard drive? Converting that into online, creating a file system, that is called as management, right? How can we manage the storage? So there are two ways that just log into your Windows server. So here, click on start, and you can see there is one option called server manager that you will get in the Windows servers. Click on server manager. That will open a window. Just you can close this one, that doesn't matter. And then on the top right side, there is one option called tools. In the tools, you have to click on computer management. Open the server manager, and on the top right side, there is one option called tools. Under the tools, you can get computer management, where you can manage your computer. Click on that. Click on computer management. So you will get another new window. Wait for some time. Okay, this is the window. On the left side, you can see there is one option called storage. On the left side, you can see one option called storage. Under the storage, there is one option called disk management, where you can manage the disk. So once you select the disk management, on the right side, you can see one 30 GB volume and one 10 GB volume. This 30 GB is the C drive, and this 10 GB is the additional volume. What is the status? Offline. So you can see the disk is offline because of policy set by an administrator. So the same window can be opened using a simple command also. Instead of opening all the things, there is one command called diskmgmt.msc. By using this command also, directly you can open the disk management console. Diskmgmt.msc. So where to enter this command? Diskmgmt.msc. Not on your laptop. If you execute this command in your laptop, you can manage your hard disk in your laptop. You have to run this command in the EC2 instance. This is the EC2 instance, right? Click on start in the EC2 instance, not in your server. then type run, R-U-N, run. So you will get this one, run command, run application. Click on that. So you will get this one. So here you have to type disk mgmt.msc. Click enter. So directly the disk management window will be open. In the first way, like we have opened the server manager, then we clicked on the tools, and then we clicked on the computer management. And on the left side, under storage, we selected the disk management. Then this got opened. Now with a simple command, we opened the same disk management window. So now this 10 GB volume is offline. So how to make it as an online? Right click on the left side, disk 1. Right click on the disk 1. And you can see one option called online. Right click on the disk 1 and click on online. So the disk 1 is online, but still it is not initialized. Still it is not usable. You cannot use it. For the first time, any new EBS volume has to be initialized on your Windows EC2 instances. Again, right click on the disk 1 and click on initialize disk. Click on initialize disk. So here automatically the disk 1 will be selected. That means it will show you the list of disks which are not yet initialized. So as of now, we have only one. So you can see the disk 1. Click on OK. And now you can see it is online and it is initialized. Can we use this one? If I open my computer, this PC, still I cannot see the D drive. Why? Still it is not having any file system. What is the thing here you can see, which is in the black color, which is unallocated space. If it is having a file system, you can see in the blue color with file system called NTFS. To create a file system on the 10 GB, right click on the EBS volume. Right click on the unallocated space, the black color space. If you see the black color, that is nothing but unallocated space. Right click on the unallocated space and click on new simple volume. Next, don't change anything. What is the meaning of this is, it is taking all the unallocated space, which is 10,237 MB, which is equal to 10 GB. Don't change anything. Click on next. So automatically here, drive letter will be assigned D. This 10 GB will have a drive letter called a D drive. Click on next, next, and finish. We haven't changed anything, right? Just we clicked on next, 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 finish. So you can see the D drive is having a healthy volume, which is having NTFS file system. So I don't need this anymore. I can close it. And if I go there, I can see the 10 GB drive. The same process you have to repeat for any new EBS volume. For all the new EBS volumes, we have to do the same thing. Okay, right. And this 10 GB volume is not a part of the EBS volumes which we created, right? Those are not a part of the volumes. Those two were created at the time of EC2 instance creation. So now we have to know that how can we attach an existing EBS volume or the newly created EBS volume to an existing EC2 instance, right? So I have to, what is the time? 7:20. Okay. So what we do is, in the next session, we will see how to attach this 1 GB volume to server 1 and server 2 simultaneously or at a time. We will check all the possible ways and we can confirm that whatever we have discussed theoretically are true. Then we will check the data. We will create some data and we will check the same data from different servers, and we will increase the size and we will modify the type of the volume. All these will come under volume management, because we created 1 GB volume, right? After a few days, that 1 GB is not sufficient and I have to increase to like 5 GB or 10 GB. So how to increase that? So all these things we will cover in the next session. Okay. So now before closing the session, Are you guys clear as of now, or any questions on EBS or EC2 also? If you have any EC2 questions, you can ask me. And if you guys are clear, you guys can leave. We can continue from tomorrow. If you have any questions on this EBS or EC2, you can ask me now. Okay, then thank you everyone. We'll continue tomorrow. That you have to check with